All right, let's dive into one of history's absolute game changers, Constantine the Great. This is a guy who inherited a world that was basically on fire. And with just a few radical moves, he didn't just save it, he rebuilt it. And in doing so, he pretty much set the stage for the future of Western civilization.
But to really get a feel for just how big his impact was, I've got a kind of weird question for you. What could a legendary commander from a hit strategy game possibly
have to do with, the entire foundation of the modern world? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. Because that digital hero is based on a real emperor who was staring down a crisis of truly epic proportions.
To understand how he managed to pull it off, we have to go back in time, back to the 3rd century. We're talking about a Roman Empire that was totally fractured, basically bankrupt, and just teetering on the edge of complete and utter collapse.
So what was the deal? What was going so wrong? Let's break down this crisis.
This was the question on every leader's mind. How do you save an empire that's literally falling apart? And it wasn't just one problem. Rome was being torn apart by 3 catastrophic crises, all at the same time.
First off, you had pure political chaos. Emperors were getting knocked off one after the other. Then you've got the borders just collapsing under constant foreign invasions. And on top of all that, the economy was in a total nosedive, with runaway inflation making Roman money pretty much worthless. The guy before him, Diocletian, tried this wild idea, split the empire into 4 pieces, the Tetrarchy. But, instead of making things stable, it just created 4 new rivals, all hungry for the top spot.
Okay, so you've got this politically shattered empire. Constantine's response? A bold 2-part plan.
And yeah, that solution began with war. Lots of it. See, Constantine looked at this whole divided tetrarchy thing and saw it for what it was, a recipe for endless civil war. He wasn't about sharing power, he was about ending the chaos for good.
On one hand, the problem was this system of multiple rulers that was just fueling nonstop conflict. Constantine's goal? The exact opposite. One emperor, one single, unified empire. And he made it happen through a series of just brilliant and frankly brutal military campaigns, taking down his rivals one by one until he was the sole, undisputed ruler of the Roman world by 324 AD. But a unified empire needs a new heart, right? The city of Rome, it was old news, politically a mess, and way too far from the real action on the threatened borders in the east. So in 330 AD, Constantine does something huge. He founds a new Rome, Constantinople. The location was pure genius, controlling the vital trade routes between Europe and Asia. He fortified it with massive walls and even offered incentives like free food to get people to move there, establishing a new center of power that would outlast Rome itself by 1,000 years.
All right, so he's got the political and military stuff sorted. Now Constantine turns his attention to that second massive crisis, the economy.
Remember that crippling hyperinflation we talked about? It was bad. The government just kept watering down its coins, mixing in less and less silver until they were basically worthless junk. People completely lost faith in the money, and trade was grinding to a halt. So you've got these old, unreliable coins. Constantine's answer was both simple and brilliant. The Solidus. It was a brand new coin made with a stable, guaranteed 4.5 grams of pure gold. Now you're probably asking, where'd he get all that gold? Well, in another pretty radical move, he ordered the seizure of all the massive treasures from pagan temples across the empire, melted it all down, and boom, you've got the funds for a new economy.
And guess what? It worked. Oh boy, did it work. The Solidus became one of the most stable currencies in the history of the world. It was the backbone of the Byzantine and European economies for more than 700 years. Just think about that for a second. That's incredible. It was basically the US dollar of its day.
But Constantine still had one more crisis to deal with. And this one was maybe the most dangerous of all. It was this deep internal split that was threatening to tear society apart. Not over politics or money, but over ideas.
You see, as Christianity got more and more popular, this huge debate exploded over a really fundamental question. What is the exact nature of Christ? This priest, Arius, he argued that if God the Father created the Son, then the Son has to be subordinate to him. This idea, which we now call Arianism, was a direct challenge to the whole concept of the Trinity, and it spread like wildfire, causing riots and these deep, violent divisions all over the empire.
Now, Constantine, who was always a pragmatist, he saw this theological war not so much as a spiritual crisis,
but as a political one, a threat. For him, this wasn't really about getting the theology right. It was about stopping a fight that was ripping apart the unity of his empire. His number one goal was always order.
So he did something that no one had ever done before. In 325 AD, Constantine, the emperor, calls together over 300 bishops for the Council of Nicaea. He actually presided over it himself, pushed them to find a consensus, and ultimately backed the side that condemned Arianism. The result? The Nicene Creed, which is still a foundational statement of Christian belief today. And the message was crystal clear. If you were a bishop who refused to sign, you weren't just disagreeing with the church. You were defying the emperor himself, and you'd be exiled by his direct order.
And this single act created a whole new model for how to govern, one that would define the next 1,000 years or more. Caesaropapism. It's this idea of fusing state and church power, where the emperor, Caesar, also gets to be the supreme authority over the church. The throne and the altar were now locked together.
Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together and really look at the world that Constantine built.
Think about it. He took an empire that was in a state of total freefall and gave it a brand new blueprint for survival. He unified its politics under one single absolute ruler. He stabilized its economy with that gold standard. He gave it a new, super defensible capital in Constantinople. And he unified its ideology by merging the power of the emperor with the power of the Christian church. When you put it all together, these steps didn't just save Rome, they basically created its successor, the Byzantine Empire.
Look, Constantine's solutions were born out of crisis, and you can't argue with the results. They worked. He rebuilt his world. But in doing that, he created this deep link between secular power and spiritual authority that would shape the next 1,500 years of history. And it leaves us with one last big question. In solving the problems of his own time, did he accidentally create a whole new set of problems that, in some ways, we're still wrestling with today?